Hey, welcome everybody. It's Wednesday, Thanksgiving Eve.
It is Thanksgiving Eve. Happy Thanksgiving.
And welcome to Sci-Fi. So welcome back, Roy, and of course, Mary Beth. How are you both?
Hello.
Doing well. So we should have probably done this last week, I guess, but because really last Monday, I think, was the official 30-year anniversary of 1994, the first TNG movie of Generations. A bit controversial. As they all seem to be in some way. So, but we're doing it today. So, but before we have that, is there news? I only
have one piece of news, and it kind of ties in. I think it's something that we can discuss amongst ourselves. Michael Dorn, the king of Never Say Never. Wait, did you guys know that there was a magazine called Star Trek Explorer?
There's a bunch of
magazine out there called Star Trek Explorer.
Not familiar with that particular one.
Yeah, well, anyway, he just did an interview with them. He is still open to playing Worf. He's not. I think he stopped angling for Captain Worf, but he is still open to it. He says even after all these years, if he hears a good idea, he'll say, "Oh, that's not a bad idea. Let me hear it." He says, I actually am slowly but surely retiring. He is still open to offers, but with changes in the industry, he doesn't want it. So auditioning now used to go and audition like in person, and now it's all remote auditioning. You either audition by Zoom or you send in a self-tape. And he's like, he's not really interested in that.
Well, he shouldn't have to audition for Worf.
No, he shouldn't have to audition for Worf, but he is open to other projects. And he has done other projects too. So that kind of made me think a little bit about the Otoy clip, the unification clip that we watched. Like, should they age out, or should they do it, as Deadpool says, until they're 90? What do you guys think?
I'll let Roy go first.
Well, thank you.
As the guest.
Should they age out and retire and then turn to CGI, or should they do it until they're 90?
I'm kind of mixed on that. I mean, there's something about aging. I mean, if it to be done gracefully, and you know what? It's almost like you're trying to cheat death, so to speak. And I guess if you're caught in the moment of the time, but I don't know. I'm very mixed with the AI and the aging, de-aging. I think it's a nice nod when it's appropriate. But here's what I will say: if they are going to do it once and done. Don't let it be something that's going to be recurring. I think that there's nothing wrong with retiring, growing old gracefully, because you know what? Eventually, it's going to happen to all of us, hopefully. And I think that it's disrespecting ourselves. I mean, of course, we all try to, feel good about ourselves and do what we can. But to get to the point where, you know what, if 58 and then, 40 years from now, 98, and you're trying to act like you're 58, it's like, I think it's a little too much.
I mean, hopefully they'd write you appropriately.
Yeah.
I think I agree with what Rory's saying. I think it depends on the character, for one thing. I think of how you do this. But I don't think they should probably run till they drop. I think we kind of seen when they've done that with, you look at Harrison Ford with Indiana Jones and you're like, okay, he's getting a little old. They did a really good job of de-aging him in the last film.
Yeah.
But again, like Roy said, it's like you can't go down that road too often. And again, like last week when we were talking about unification, and the ramifications of this technology, of the abuse that it could potentially have, on these people's basically legacy, after they're gone. Do you keep making Kirk show up and stuff, William Shatner's Kirk, or do you recast it like they have been? Every time they recast it, it's not Kirk. It's like another Kirk. You know what I'm saying? I just
Chris Pine Kirk is not.
Pine did it the best, honestly.
Which is kind of the crux. That's kind of the crux. Is we want, like, unification was so well received because people truly want their characters. They want their beloved characters. Yeah. But to do that, we either CGI it or we make them do it till they're 90. Like, there's no two ways around that.
And I think that's to Roy's point, where we had a very specific reason for doing it. It was done. It was a one-off. They have no intention of continuing or turning that into a feature film or even
we know they are licensed. They are officially licensed by Paramount now. So
they are, but specific Carlos right there on the bridge said, no, we are not going to make this. Was just a proof of concept, basically, to showcase what we as a company can do. And that was it, because Bill asked that very question, like, what is your end
What are
game?
you doing with this?
You know, what are you going to do with it? And I think partly that he's concerned that he would, his image would eventually be abused and reused over and over and over again. So if again, like I said last week, if they're gonna do it, they need to have the permission of the actor, and of course of the estate afterwards. And like we were talking about, the Darth Vader, can James Earl Jones recorded his voice, basically getting, you can use my voice for Darth Vader forever, because there's no, you can't recreate, you can't put somebody else in that voice. It's just that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's interesting. So as far as getting to Michael Dorn, they do say that he's hungry for work. Yeah. And he's been pushing for legacy.
He's been pushing Captain
stuff.
Worf.
And I think I think with the Paramount now being in control of Star Trek, and I'm hoping we're going to see a restructuring of Star Trek, and because CBS hasn't done a great job, in my opinion, with it. Y'all can have your opinions and they're fine, but
I don't know how that's going to happen, because that would have to be a secret hideout thing, because Paramount, last we checked, Paramount shut down their TV studios, so they're not doing anything. And it was CBS that stood up all these shows, like even all the new shows. That was CBS television production. So
right, but Paramount now owns it's all Paramount now. So
yeah, but they've shut down their TV studios, so they're not filming anything.
I think they're in a restructure kind of a mode. I think we'll see some change. I don't know. It's the same thing. There was a rumor, and this is just a rumor, that Disney was looking to offload Star Wars because it's been so abysmal for them.
Really?
But, it was just a rumor, and it may have no basis in fact.
They've made so much money though from Star Wars, and
they've lost a lot of money from Star Wars.
Did they really?
Well, after the Acolyte was, what did we say that was? How many? It's like 18 million or something, or something like stupid, or 180 million or something.
But they're going to go ahead with Ahsoka season 2 and
to make that, and it made no money. A lot of their shows have just not produced and the movies haven't done what they want them to do.
But you know what?
I lay that at the feet of Kathleen Kennedy personally. I mean, I think it's her at the helm of Lucasfilms has just wrecked it. But
with the 50th anniversary not too far away, there's a way that they can potentially recoup, I think.
We'll see.
I'm really curious to see if these burnt, supposedly destroyed copies of the original Star Wars are going to resurface. And I know that Lucas supposedly,
you can find it, online.
But I mean,
you're right. I would love
licensed Blu-ray high definition, and let me tell you something, they will make $1 billion.
Oh, I've said that since the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, that's a cha-ching all the way around.
But that was George that didn't want that. Right. Of course, you remember George Lucas was the one when he signed over back in 2012, was it? Over to Disney. He's the one that I sold it to the white slave traders. That's what he called Disney.
Nice.
Look it up. It's true. He said.
I believe it. I read it out. Lucas. Oh my God.
Happy
anyway, we'll see what happens. I hope
things work.
Michael seems like a really nice guy. I've met him a few times. I hope things work out for him, whether it's Worf or something else. I don't know. I just don't know if we need what the current Star Trek has been. I mean, Legacy would be interesting, but we'll see. They have a very good habit of taking something that looks potentially really good and then just ruining it.
Yeah. I'm kind of dreading Skeleton Crew's out on Monday. And
I honestly, I'm not going to watch it. I don't have Disney.
I will check it out and report back.
Yeah, you report back. Again, I know it's a kid show, but again, it's kind of.
I'm telling you, it's the prodigy for Star Wars. Happy Thanksgiving,
I'm not
Martin.
A fan of
Happy
Prodigy.
Thanksgiving, Sue. Happy Thanksgiving, Henry. The Shadow is here. Happy Thanksgiving, Chris. Happy Thanksgiving, Skojo. And Jerry Seward. Hi, guys. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving Eve. You turn my heat off.
That was the extent of the news.
That was it. That's all I had to. Not a lot going on. But what are we drinking tonight?
We're drinking. I found this one, Saurian brandy.
Of course, Saurian brandy.
Want to have Smirnoff vanilla, twist vodka, banana liqueur, and Godiva chocolate. It sounds better, but I thought this was funny from the film that we were about to talk about when Data finally has taste. And of course, he's like, "It's revolting," and she's like, "You want more?"
Please.
Actually, I don't know about banana, but the vanilla and the chocolate.
Well, the banana and chocolate is a kind of a thing because you get those chocolate covered bananas.
Yeah,
You ever have
yeah.
those frozen things? So it makes sense, I guess. I don't know. Try it. This, I think, was one of the ones they had at Quark's Bar, if I
Okay.
remember.
Oh, in
Looks
Las Vegas?
At the like, Star Trek experience. So
How was that?
I mean, it
Mike?
just
Was
sounds
that
like
good?
a sweet
What's
like
that?
I would love it because it sounds like it's gonna be all sugar.
Was that good, Quark's Bar?
oh yeah, it was awesome.
Oh, is
Again,
that what
talk
they
about a
did?
moneymaker that was making money hand over fist, and it was the Hilton where it was at right next to the Las Vegas Convention Center, which is massive if you've ever been there. And it was the Hilton that wanted them out. They felt it didn't fit their clientele.
Oh, jeez.
But it was a really cool. The bar alone was just cool to hang out in.
You didn't want the Quarks. You didn't think Quarks fit with your clientele.
Yeah, it was cool. They had a lot of memorabilia, in cases that you could look at. They had, of course, bunch of ships up on the ceiling in like a space background. They had the two virtual, what do you call them? Not virtual, they're thrill rides, I guess they call them. The Borg one was really good. I mean, you kind of really felt like you were going to get assimilated there.
Oh, the hydraulic, like you get in the box and it moves hydraulic.
It was more than that. It was like theater, like you're like going and you go in. Yeah, it was like,
oh wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Have you ever done the closest thing I could think of was the Terminator ride at Universal at Orlando.
No.
Had a very, again, very intense kind of a theater thing, but you felt like the T-1000 was kind of coming at you.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Anyway, it was really cool. If you got to see it, you guys know what I'm talking about. If you didn't, that sucks for you.
STLV is always a good time. Like it's a fun one. Of all
fun.
the various,
that's different.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah.
But Creation has a bunch of Star Trek stuff kind of around the country. But I
they
think
had they should bring it back to something like that, an attraction to Las Vegas. I think it would be bigger, do it bigger and better. Don't put it in a hotel. Maybe make it its own thing. I don't know.
Did you say Creation is doing like a tour around the country with certain things?
I heard they're taking it on the chin pretty hard too. That they're not making money on those. I heard some of them like 100 people showed up.
Really?
Because they're not advertising it properly.
No, they're really not. You have to like go to their website and
I guess so. They've got this they're doing this Star Trek tour.
But you know why? Because Reed Pop and Fan Expo do a better job, I think.
Probably, but the problem is like I think where they're losing money is that they're paying all, as we have to have all these guarantees for these actors.
Yeah.
So they got to pay them. If 50 people, 100 people, 10,000 people show up, they got to pay them. So
yeah, that'll bankrupt anybody.
Oh yeah. The word I got from people in the biz, so to speak, was it's not going well for them.
No.
They should let it go and try something else.
Yeah. Not my monkeys.
Not my circus. Not my monkeys.
Not my monkeys. Right. We'll see how next Vegas goes because I think they got the license back. So
cool.
Let's dig in.
Instead of being STLV, it'll actually be Star Trek Las Vegas again.
Oh, they got the license back. Oh, well,
that's what I heard. I thought I heard that. Don't swear on that. I don't know, but that's what I'd heard.
Okay, but even if they did, maybe they'll change it up because then like StarTrek.com will push it. Like, you know what I mean? They'll change up the way they can promote it.
Yeah. I think they always do well in Las Vegas.
I was just going to say, I want to do the 60th anniversary in Vegas because I think that'll be really cool. I mean, that's probably going to be insane. But
that's just coming up now in 4
Well, they already had the 50. This would be 60, right? Coming up?
Yeah, 60. 2 more years. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 more years would be 60. They had, so.
You know what's really scary about that? I'll be 60 when it turns 60. Come on.
Yeah, I'll be close.
Yeah, exactly, Mary Beth. That's my reaction.
I'm right behind you.
Yeah.
I'm literally like right nipping at your heels.
Just a year shy of that. So anyway, people came here to have us talk about Generations, not this.
Let's do it, Kirk. The meetup.
What is interesting? So this was the first. This was the first outing of the TNG crew into the cinema.
And they filmed like 4 days after wrapping up All Good Things.
They were clearly using this as a transition from the old crew to the new crew. Mm-hmm. That was painfully obvious. They wanted some closure, and it was also again another kind of, which I thought was interesting, that they got rid of the Enterprise D in this film too. That was also kind of using that as kind of a genesis for a new ship, I guess, or what do you want to call it? No pun intended. All right, little pun. Anyway, so the basic story is we start out with in Kirk's era, towards the end of his career, He's still a captain though. He has not moved up to admiral, but I guess it was now. I guess the A had been decommissioned, and the Enterprise B, which
Or
was
did
just
he
a
get,
lame version of the Excelsior.
did he get demoted after some stunt in one of the other movies?
Well, he got demoted down after the whales.
Yeah.
The
And he was
whales,
going to
yeah.
be that's when they gave him the A, and then he just stayed captain all this time. I guess he never went. Anyway, so yeah, so the I think the funniest part of this movie is this opening scene with, of course, nothing worked on this new Enterprise. Everything's going to be Tuesday. That was kind of a
Tuesday.
joke.
Yeah,
tell me.
I mean, poor
Yeah, Alan
Alan
Ruck as a captain. The thing that kind of cracks me up. Okay, we're going to start this. You guys give me your opinion.
adore
So you got
Alan
Alan Ruck as playing Captain Harriman, and he's kind of a bit of a comedy. Like he clearly doesn't seem to know what he's doing or is willing to do anything, and he's kind of looking to Kirk and like, yeah, you need to go do this. And like, how did this guy ever get to be captain if he's such a buffoon
of the flagship.
or just so unsure of himself? That's kind of what you almost get.
Yeah,
Is that he's unsure. I'm like you had to have been at least a first officer. You had, you know what I'm saying? You had to, you're, and this is apparently don't forget, this is a flagship. This isn't some stupid freighter.
Right.
This is the flagship.
Yeah, I hear you. I try to tell
And he
myself
kind of
that I'd be
seemed like a
nervous too.
doofus. And
Kirk
so, I
himself
mean, I
was
guess it was
watching.
for comedy reasons, but I mean, what do you guys think? Do you agree with that? I mean,
Go ahead, Roy.
Yeah, I mean, I one thing I got amusement out of it is Kirk kept wanting to like give suggestions, and Scotty at one point says, admirals, or he goes, Kirk or whatever, I forget what he said. He goes, is there something wrong with your chair? Because he keeps wanting to get up and give a response. And Harriman is very sure of himself at the beginning because he says, it's like a simple trip right around the block, and he's like really, kind of like he said, we just cleared the asteroid belt, and he's just kind of like, really just like walking around like he's the big guy because he's on the flagship. But then when the emergency hits, he doesn't even want to respond to it, and it's just that even when he does respond to it, he's questioning about helping the people on both ships. And then Kirk says to him, he said, if you want to sit in that chair, he goes, that's part of the business, and he does seem to step it up when he needs to. And I think maybe part of it too is the intimidation, because they are around, as they say, legends. I mean, you've got, Admiral Kirk, who's now Captain Kirk. You have, Scotty, and you also have Chekhov. So they're so revered. So I kind of can see how the intimidation factor plays in, but to your point, it's just that he's very hesitant. He does seem to second guess himself. He doesn't have the confidence he should have. But I think part of it, again, might be minimized just because of the whole fact that they're around the living legends, as they are referred to.
Yeah, because the other point of this is this should not have been his first command. They don't say whether it is or not.
Right.
But again, none of the captains of the Enterprise was even Kirk. That was not his first command. He had a smaller ship that he commanded prior to this. So they don't put a rookie captain in the flagship.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I said it doesn't, he should have been more, even regardless of who was on the bridge.
He should have been. Yeah.
He should have been. So, but it worked for the movie. The Tuesday jokes were kind of funny. The
thing is, try to imagine the movie if Alan Ruck had been a strong captain, because we already have Picard and Kirk, who are very, very different captains, but both very, very strong. And we know them already. So now you throw a third into the mix. I think he had to be a foil to those two. I think he had to be weak by comparison. I really do. I think that.
Well, I don't think he had to be up at their level, because again,
he wasn't
they're
going to be
legendary. Kirk and Picard are legendary captains.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think like April necessarily wasn't a legendary.
We don't know much about
he was. We don't know, but I mean, we don't hear. He's that he was this. Particularly. Heroic captain. So I think he just needed to be a stable and competent captain, which I didn't really get from.
Even competence, really. We got more
because, like you said, he was kind of like, well, why don't we try this? And Kirk's going, that's not going to work. You got to get transported. He's like, well, we're going to get destroyed. Like, he was scared to, you got to do this. It's like, this is what the job is.
But the thing about this whole movie, and I'm going to come back to this a lot, the movie has some great moments. It has some really great moments. But it's got some weak moments too, and this is one of them. This leaning on their home. They're in the solar system. They're at Earth, but they're the only ship that can respond to this.
Right. That was
Really?
the other thing. There's nobody else in space
Really?
dock.
Like the trip was going to be around Pluto and back.
So they're also saying that
home.
Earth leaves itself completely undefended all the time.
Yeah.
Like there's no other ships like that are just on general patrol around the solar system.
Yeah, and that's a great example of some of the writing quibbles that I have with this movie. There's a few moments where you've got to suspend disbelief left, right, and center in order for this to work.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
So obviously the other part of this that doesn't really make sense is the whole thing with them beaming them off of the Liqueur, I guess is the ship that gets destroyed. One of the ships.
And only 47 made it.
And well, okay, we can give it that the ship, it was, we don't know what the transporters can handle at that, and with the disruption, that's all you could get a lock on. Because remember, you said they were phasing in and out, so that's maybe all you can get a lock on. So we can almost assume that all the people that he didn't get a lock are now in the Nexus.
Absolutely,
they're just there. So
they're fine. They're happy.
They're happy,
right? They're
comfortable. Don't worry about it.
And that was part of the story too, because what happened was, they, as Scotty said, that they were phasing in and out of the space-time continuum. So while they were phasing, they were actually experiencing the Nexus. As Guinan says later on, when describing it, it was just like being caught in joy, where you are just like so happy. And it's just, and think about it, they were actually not even fully materialized. They were just like, it was part of it, of them essentially, in that moment.
Well, clearly it left because she was one of those people, and it left that echo of her in the Nexus. So we don't really know how that is. Is it their spirit that got left in the Nexus,
or
what got left there? How is this? Or is it
duplicate?
Was it just somehow
transporters have accidents all the time?
So, but she did say, "I can't go back because I'm already there."
Right.
Because he had asked, "You need to come back and help me." So she's like, "I can't." When Picard's there, he's like, "I can't," because I assume that everybody's watched this movie, so we don't need to go through all the plot.
But it was not, the Nexus didn't have the whole, I guess it has a hold on some people. It had a hold on Malcolm McDowell.
Yes.
McDowell was it did not have a hold on Picard or Kirk.
Well, he had lost his,
them. It would be pure joy. They wouldn't want to leave, but they were both like, yeah, you know what? Actually, we're out. Peace out. See ya. And they leave.
Well, because Picard, you could kind of tell he was kind of looking at his family, all the things that he wanted, and then he looks at the Christmas tree and he sees they're like little stars inside the Christmas, and he realizes that can't be real,
right?
That's fake, and that's when I think he's just like, this isn't real, and he's kind of been through this before. I don't want to be in this false thing, and Kirk just, I think, is being Kirk. He just realized that he would never be happy in that life.
And here's the thing, though, too. Soren and Picard are very similar, if you think about it, because Picard lost his family, and Soren lost his family to the Borg. And that's why Soren wanted to go back, because he lost his wife, he lost his children. In fact, Picard was trying to tap into that when he was trying to convince him to turn, not do what he was going to do by sending the missile into the sun, and then that other planet was going to get obliterated in the Viridian system. And then he even says to him, nice try. Picard was experiencing the same type of pain because he lost his brother, he lost Robert, he lost his nephew Rene, and he also lost his sister-in-law. So it's kind of similar but different. And he was experiencing exactly what Malcolm McDowell, Soren, experienced being in the Nexus. But to your point, Mike, what happened was he kind of like snapped out of it because he realized it wasn't real. And even though he wanted to be there, it wasn't. And the same thing that kind of like later happens with Kirk when he's happy and he's like, you know what? He said, he said he even, does the relationship in regards to Picard. He says, I was like you. He goes, I couldn't even look past my own uniform. And he's like, what did it get me? And he's like, I've got an empty house. He's got nobody. He's alone. It kind of refers to like almost like Star Trek V, when Kirk even makes that comment with, about, when he falls and he says he knew he wasn't going to die because he wasn't alone.
That's where we were just talking about that before you came on. I was trying to remember where that line was.
He was climbing Yosemite, wasn't he?
Right. He's climbing. He was Mount Capitan. He was, El Capitan. So anyway, to to the point. Well, Bill, I'm going to answer Bill's question. Well, at least what my opinion.
Great question.
No,
Bill.
there is. I'm going to say no, Bill, because they chose to leave on their own. They were totally in the Nexus, and they totally left the Nexus. Where
Like Guinan
Guinan and other people were split. There should be a Soren kicking around in the Nexus, theoretically. But my thing is, since they were ripped away, that's where the splitting happened. That's my guess. I mean, it's
transporter accident.
Anyway, it was like a transporter accident. So I'm going to guess because Guinan said you can leave anytime you want at any point in time. So that would be my opinion on that. You can disagree, of course. But the other part of this is if Kirk's really all he wants is adventure and being captain, why wasn't that his dream instead of hanging out? Because clearly he was already ready to leave Antonia the first time to go on the ship, and now he's saying he regrets it. But we know that Kirk's kind of his, he's married to his ship, as he's always said, in many episodes, that he's married to the Enterprise, so to speak. So I don't know.
And the other hole with this too is, and this is almost like reacting to the situation. And as human beings, we do it. Something happens, we immediately want to react to a situation and just kind of like try to correct something. But if him and Picard had really sat down and thought it out, okay, they went back to Viridian 3 at the moment all this happened. Wouldn't it have been better to have gone to maybe a different point in time, because they could have gone anytime, at any place where they could have gotten reinforcements. They could have, what I mean? They could have maybe gone early.
Then they would have been stuck there.
What's that?
If they went far enough back, depending on time, they would have been stuck in that time and potentially caused a paradox because they hadn't left yet.
Well, yeah,
if you want to go down that road of
no, you're right. And then they'd have the what was it, the time police coming after them like they did in DS9.
Right.
So
the temporal agency.
You could also have the time paradox and everything with that, but yeah, that's
man was a menace. That was like the best line.
That was a fun episode. Trials and Tribulations. 30th anniversary of DS celebrating originals track. Isn't that crazy? That was like almost 30 years ago. God.
It's flying by too fast.
That was one of the best episodes of DS9. Period.
It really was.
So anyway, we get to this point where, so we got Soren trying to, and his answer to getting back in the Nexus is to blow up suns to move the Nexus or the ribbon so that it ends up crossing a planet. But apparently, I guess it doesn't. Apparently, it only absorbs organic matter and not planets or something, because
or ships. Because they said ships would blow up.
That was the thing they said. If a ship gets too close, but I was like, why don't you just go in a spacesuit and hang out in front of it or get beamed into it or something, and then.
I guess it takes.
Claims now. I'm giving him a pass on that because he said I spent 18 years or whatever, how many years, trying to figure out how to get in, and this is the only way. So I'm going to take him at his word that for whatever reason, anything that I come up with wouldn't have worked. That he already, for whatever reason,
went down the.
What they said, it only comes through our galaxy every 86 years.
Yeah, infrequently, but they'd never noticed it before, and plus. I don't know, man.
But I'm like, through the galaxy.
Again, writing for the writing.
It didn't look like it was moving fast enough to get out of the solar system in 86 years.
So let me ask you guys this. The studio put two demands. They nixed a bunch of stuff. They had ideas, and they're like, no, you're not doing that. But they did have two demands. One is that Kirk and Picard share screen time, and the other was the destruction of the Enterprise. What did you guys think of their execution of both of those? Either one. What did you think of the execution of Kirk and Picard meeting? And what did you think of the execution of the destruction of the Enterprise?
Well, I don't know how else you would have done Kirk and Picard meeting without
on the bridge of a ship fighting something. I mean,
well, that would have been cool, but the problem is you have to have some kind of time travel. In there, because
there's always
much time between these two characters, so somebody's traveled. Either he's gone forward or Kirk or Picard's gone back. So again, and we've done time travel kind of already in the movie series. So I think this was kind of an interesting way of doing it. I don't know if I particularly cared for it. I don't know if we needed to see. Did we even need to see these two captains together? Was
It was
that
the
some
men.
kind of?
Yeah,
Well,
I don't know.
I understand that they were trying to make it as a transition between the two crews. I get that, but maybe
Sue liked it. I thought it was
what,
underwhelming. Those two proud captains should have been on the bridge of a ship.
yeah. And you got to
well,
remember
it would have
too,
been neat
like,
if we had the whole crew, like the Enterprise A and the D, somehow kind of like we did with the one episode where we had the Enterprise B. Was it the no?
yesterday's Enterprise you're talking about?
Yesterday's Enterprise, kind of where we had the two Enterprises fighting a common enemy.
Right.
Something like that would have been cool if they could have figured it out, but one of them would have had a time travel. There's just no way around
Yeah,
it.
somebody had time travel.
So that would have been cool. And then, but then how do you kill off Kirk? Or do you even
Right.
need to? I don't think they needed to. I think that was unnecessary. I know they
I-
wanted closure for that character, but I think Kirk is eternal.
One of the things you have to remember
Yeah,
too,
go ahead,
though,
Roy.
I'm sorry. Yeah, this was taking place in 1994. Back then, I remember seeing this in the theater when it first came out. There was a lot of attention because Star Trek was at a different place than it is right now. I mean, with the release of Star Trek: The Next Generation, it was such a big deal because when you heard Star Trek, you only thought of Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Scotty, and the rest of the
For the
crew.
longest time, yeah.
And that was pretty much a staple. And they had a really almost fight to get the respect. And that the first season, I mean, I remember Encounter at Farpoint and all the attention that was being garnered about this new series. And it was Star Trek after 18 years it was coming, 17 years it was coming out, or whatever, 18. And essentially it worked its way through a lot of things. I mean, it had the first season Growing Pains, and then the second season you had the strike of 88, the writer's strike going on, and recycled old scripts. Then it hit the third season and it was starting to get its momentum, and it was really defining itself and becoming its own. And then you had the
people just to interject for a second, Roy, people would argue that's when Gene died.
And that's
And
true.
it got better.
Yeah, because he died in 91, I think, around that time.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then by the fourth season, when Star Trek surpassed the 79 episodes, and I think it was the one where Tasha Yar's sister was in, if I remember correctly. I forget what her name was, where they go to her planet where Tasha.
Yeah.
That was like the 80th episode. So Star Trek Next Generation was pretty much its own thing, and it was evolving. Then you had James Doohan, who was in Relics. I mean, that was such a great moment. And then again, you had Unification that took place with Leonard Nimoy being on there. I mean, that was like you talk about the mantle. I mean, you had DeForest Kelly to counter Farpoint.
Right.
But anyway, my point is, though, it really was trying to have its own entity. And then there was also Star Trek that was in the background. So Star Trek, the original series, Undiscovered Country, the last movie was in 91. So that was they were both going on at around the same time. So when this movie came into play, again, it was all that fan service, it was all the attention, and it was kind of like a bridge. It was kind of like passing the gauntlet, which we talked about earlier. So again, it was a different time. My problems, I mean, and maybe I'm jumping the gun with this, my biggest complaint about this film was that I almost felt like all good things could have been the Next Generation movie. I love that the final episode. I felt that with these characters, I mean, I liked the beginning of this movie. I thought there were amusing points, and I totally agree with you were saying about that, MB, in regards to like these plot holes and things that you kind of had to go with it. And Mike was saying, suspending disbelief. And I liked when Kirk and Picard were united together and they were working together. I enjoyed that. But I felt that with the Next Generation crew, we had 7 seasons of this crew being together and working together and interacting, and it just evolved. And I felt it was like such a disservice for them. That
they were underutilized.
Underutilized. I felt that they didn't interact like they interacted during the series.
Agreed.
I felt like the relationships were, it was like different things went out the window. That was my biggest argument about it. I mean, it was just that it was a letdown for me. And I didn't like, David Carson, if I remember correctly, I think he directed yesterday's Enterprise. The Enterprise, when it went through in the alternate timeline, it was very dark. I was not a fan of the lighting in this movie. I didn't like it. And everything on the bridge was very dark.
It was dark.
And even when, Picard is in his quarters with Troy, and they're talking and that's more about mood, because, he lost his family. But on the Enterprise bridge, it just had a different atmosphere. Obviously, they adjusted the set. There were different modifications that made. Worf actually had a chair. They elevated, I think, the captain's chair. There was different things because it was a motion picture. So they did that. Stellar cartography, amazing set. What they had.
I was gonna say that scene alone is probably the best visual of the whole of the film. That scene in stellar cartography, because I think I saw it in the theater. In fact, I saw opening day in the theater.
Yeah, same here.
And that scene alone blew me away for as far as special effect. The way it would just, and it would just.
I mean, it just
got a sense of it's like being in this like.
That was ILM.
But I just felt. I just felt it was like a letdown though, in regards to I wanted more, and obviously we should definitely at some point talk about First Contact. I don't know if you guys have done that, but I love that movie.
I love that movie too.
It was the best of the TNG. By far the best of the TNG films.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. It was a good film.
Right, I completely agree with everything you're saying. It was a little underwhelming. I didn't mind the dark. I didn't mind the relight.
Well,
that didn't bother me, but they underutilized those performers.
Yeah, I think in the when he's in his ready room talking to Deanna about his family and it's kind of that dark. I think what they're drawing for is they're very close to that sun, so there's an immense amount of light. So you assume that they have these like
darkening
polarizing
windows. Had the shades down.
Yeah.
Well, like a polarizing window that was reducing it, so you got this orange warm glow. The bridge, you're right, shouldn't have been. Although, yeah, I think that was for dramatic effect. When they were in battle, it would darken. You know what I'm saying? It's that.
Yeah, that didn't bother me.
It didn't bother me. That didn't really bother me. I think in the film, I think what bothered me was killing Kirk off, even though we all knew it was going to happen.
Yeah,
because that was not a secret going into this film. They pretty much all knew that Kirk was going to die.
This one, they actually filmed a second. This was a second ending that was filmed.
Yes, he got shot in the first.
He was shot in the back by Soren in the first. And they
weren't having that. Test audiences were not having that.
They were not happy with that.
Could you imagine what a dumb idea? Who was the idiot that thought that that's how Kirk should go out, being shot in the back?
I mean, what a way! I mean, Captain Kirk, and please, and fortunately that they did go back, and they, I think it caused the movie to go over budget, but you know what? It was definitely necessary.
You know, would have been an interesting twist, I think, rather than have him die on Viridian 3 like he did. If he died similar to how Spock did, saving the ship, saving the Enterprise D. Somehow he did something. He's on the D or whatever. They got him on the D.
Saving the next
he had to go, and he sacrificed himself to save that ship.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened.
I think that would have been a better way to go.
That's kind of how he did go, and they thought he went though. Before he went into the Nexus, he was.
Yeah. I guess you could say that. Yeah, that's true.
That's how history had remembered that. He saved the Enterprise B from destruction from this energy ribbon that was going through the galaxy.
Yeah.
But given the second chance, and then this happened, and it's like you said, we knew it was going to happen, and it was like, does it really have to happen? And it's like it was almost like when you saw Star Trek 2. It's like they sucked you in the beginning because they have that simulator, and then you think Spock died because they had all the attention and everything that was in the media that Leonard Nimoy was not going to be in the movie or was going to die in the movie, and then it's like surprise. But then when you get to the end of the film, and then he leaves this post, it's like your heart drops because you know what's going to happen. And it was kind of similar with this, where especially when he's like that pad is there on that prefaces, and then he looks out, and then they're playing that almost like that kind of melancholy music, but it's almost it's kind of like heroic, and what he's thinking. He's going to do that leap, and
Right, that's a great point. Spock got a fabulous funeral and send off.
Yeah,
that made us all cry. Kirk got buried under a pile of rocks.
Yeah,
and I don't know if that was really quite. And he said, if you watch his little interview that he did for this,
why would they leave the body? Which they didn't, I guess, according to Unification, that they didn't leave the body there.
Yeah, they did. They left the badge there, and then you see him picking up the badge.
So, that would why would they? But then again, even why would they just shoot? I guess Spock.
Yeah.
I guess that's the normal way. That's a naval burial, basically. It seems.
Yeah.
That's
In the
kind of
Otoy interview, Shatner says, I shot that ending. I died. I got up and I said to David Carson, I know how to bring him back. And they were all like, no, you're dead now. Sorry, you're dead.
Well, he brought him
But
back in his own book.
he wrote The Return,
Return,
the sequel, The Return, and he brought himself back.
Yeah.
Which you know what? More power to you. More
Yeah.
power to you.
Now, I'm sure. No, we didn't. Roy, obviously, you've seen the video that Otoy did, and I just briefly, because I mean, what was your reaction to it when you saw it?
I loved it. I thought it was a wonderful piece of art. I thought it, and on a certain level, I couldn't help but think, and I'm not trying to, I kind of felt that maybe this down deep, obviously it's with Kirk and Spock, but then I'm thinking in the back of my mind how William Shatner felt about Leonard Nimoy. And, we've all heard, he's been very vocal about it. He's written about it, that, unfortunately, how they really never reconnected. I couldn't help but feel that, I'm getting chills thinking about it, but it's just that, William Shatner was given that moment where he was holding his friend's, his friend's hand, and just, it's just like, I've got you. And
Robin
I just
said exactly that. Robin was there watching, and she was like, you guys, she goes, for a moment there, it felt intrusive because it felt like we were watching his private life.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, you know what? Yeah.
It was very emotional.
It was very emotional.
Yeah.
And so in fact, we were talking about it last week, and Carlos, the director, popped into our chat here.
Nice.
Where'd you come from, Carlos?
That's
He was
cool.
very happy with our comments, of course, because we were just gushing over it. But we just every time, even I was watching somebody else's review of it and the clips they were showing, and I was welling up again just watching the clips. It wasn't even the whole thing, it's just such an emotional thing. But I don't want to spend obviously the hour because we already talked about it. But we had never
let's talk about something a little fluffier. Do you guys want to talk about Worf's promotion or Data dealing with, because both of those are an example of how
a lot of side stories that we haven't even gotten to here.
Yeah. That was another way they kind of did this cast, the next gen cast, a disservice. Like, Worf's promotion was just weird. I don't know why they did it that way. He was the kind of guy that would just pin it on and keep working. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't.
Well, I mean, that was their tradition to do this.
Michael Dorn was like, no, don't do this. Please don't do this. And they're like, nope, we're doing it. Put your tricorn on.
Yeah.
Go stand out on this fake plank.
But that was that whole thing where Picard and Riker kind of, after that whole scene, at the end, and he's saying, look at the will, no one can get a hold of us, no computers, no nothing, just stars and the wind. That's kind of a very that visceral, that Picard always kind of wants that experience, that just, you're a man in his ship, captain in his ship. I was always kind of like, Worf's only lieutenant commander. That seems like he should be higher than that, but I guess it makes sense of the timing of when this all happened. But he was a lieutenant from Farpoint, right? So it took him 7 years or 8 years to go from lieutenant. That seems an awfully long time to get to lieutenant commander. I don't know. Apparently, Starfleet's promotion system is very slow.
Yeah, very slow.
And it goes back to his one line: "Sir, I protest. I am not a merry man.
I'm not a merry man." So but again, that whole led into the whole thing of Data not understanding humor.
I thought that was a nice moment.
Knocking what's her name into the water there.
That's not funny.
It wasn't funny.
That was good. The timing on that was very done well. And again, you kind of see that through this whole movie, we see that Data and Geordi relationship that was cultivated in the series.
Yeah.
So you kind of see that. He goes, was that not funny? That was the timing was.
And that was, I think that was our friend Pat Tallman getting actually doing the falling in that scene.
Yes,
that was her. Yeah, because there's some pictures online of her in the
costume,
Navy outfit there.
But Brett, I have to confess this, you guys. Data irritated, and I love Data. I am pro Data, but he was getting on my nerves in this movie.
It was a little much.
It was a little much.
I mean,
they were trying to show you too that the chip was overwhelming him. I think
he went through 97 motions
on the Argos array when Storin attacks him, and he immediately goes into which is kind of funny. Like he goes into this massive fear, but I'm like, he knew it's not like
He's
he
still an
forgot
officer
his.
who's trained. Like you think some.
But I'm saying, but he's
manner of-
also extremely strong and extremely fast. So he could have probably
he
snatched the
still has
gun
the
out of
edge.
Soren's hand or shot him before Soren even was able to move.
Uh-oh.
So, but somehow he forgot that he had all this ability, and now he's afraid because this guy's pointing a gun at him.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, we're trying to, they give him the thing that the chip is kind of messing with him. So, again, I give him a pass on that one because the chip is screwing up his brain and he's not thinking clearly.
They redesigned the chip for some reason too. I don't know why. The chip in the next gen series was a tiny little circle, like a pie with a piece taken out, like it kind of shape, and it went on the side. And then this thing was a giant.
Yeah, it looked really
went
big.
in the top. So I don't know.
You know why? Because they had to put a magnet in it so they could do that little floaty spinny thing when it was.
Let's show it floating in its thing.
I mean, that's like an old chart. I mean, you can buy all kinds.
The chip
of
was
stuff
made by Microsoft. That would explain it, Jeff.
The movie budget
made by Microsoft. Yeah. So that was
what about the line with Soren when he said about time and being burned by is like
that's
time is a fire in which we burn.
Another underutilized fabulous.
That's a great line. I've actually used that, believe it or not.
Time is the fire in which we all burn.
Time is the fire in which we burn.
And I really thought
he actually had that engraved on a watch.
Yes.
That he carried on the show when he pull out like a pocket watch and look, he had that engraved on the pocket watch. Just nobody would ever see it, but let's talk about Soren and Michael and
Malcolm.
Not Roddy. No.
Malcolm.
No, Malcolm.
Malcolm. Thank you.
Malcolm, right? Is that right?
Clearly, I'm having a brain.
Okay.
My thing is, I love him because he's great in whatever he does, but he does the same character and everything.
Yeah, that's all right.
I mean, has he ever played a good guy? Somebody in the chat. Has he ever played a nice guy?
He did in Time After Time. He was H.G. Wells, and that was the night. In fact, David Warner played Jack the Ripper in that movie.
Oh, David Warner, who played
that was a good movie.
Kardashian. There are five lights.
That was a good movie. Did you do that one?
We did. Yeah, we did that 4 years ago.
Yeah, that was a good movie. Yeah, I think that's probably the only movie I think I've seen him in where he didn't play a bad guy.
He was in what? Caligula. He was
in that. Well, Clockwork Orange is probably his most famous. He's very young in that. Yeah, Caligula. But other stuff. I mean, everything he's.
But I mean, here you've got three classically trained actors. Patrick certainly is. I know Malcolm is.
They were friends, and they
were grossly underutilized. And what do they have to do? Fisticuffs. Yeah. Like I don't know. There should have been more verbal. Like I don't know.
Well, I guess
I like the way that Picard reacts though when Soren says the line, because it's almost like he knows he's saying he realizes as far as like what happened to his family. And
absolutely, because remember he's El-Orian, so they listen. They're very aware of everything,
and it stops.
Picard had that kind of empathy. So there's clearly he knew that line would affect him.
Yeah,
that's why that's why you could see it. Yeah, he says it's a fire. Way he says it's a fire in which we burn.
And I know you understand, Captain. And it just. I mean, Patrick Stewart really delivers well. And again, with actors, sometimes it's even more so not what you don't say, but just the way you deliver with your facial expressions and your body language. And Patrick Stewart is just like right on with that.
Oh yeah, he's on point every time.
Well, I mean, again, you're right. And these are you're getting these performances out of these actors because of who they are.
Exactly.
And
they're heavy hitters.
But I agree. You're really right, Soren. I mean, they're probably both utilized his character. They could have, but I mean, it ultimately has to be somewhat of an action film. Star Trek movies generally are not Star Trek TV shows where we get the big thinkers.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, we had The Search for God,
or at least the JJ ones are.
Yeah, well, I mean, all of them. Name me one that was one of the movies that was.
The motion picture
was probably the closest thing, and it didn't do that well.
Yeah,
I mean, overall, it was.
So they came out with Wrath of Khan, action piece.
Right.
Well, I would say Star Trek.
Action piece, right.
Star Trek 4 was not what I would say full of action. It was more comedic.
It was a little different feel to it. You're right, but it wasn't episode, it was more like Trouble with Tribbles.
It was. It
Then,
was. I mean,
you
it was
know,
more lighthearted, and they wanted to go in that direction after, the motion
yeah.
picture, and especially
After
the second and
killing
the
off
third
Spock,
one.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like, let's kind of go light, and it worked. But yeah. But overall, though,
Yeah, and the big action set piece for this film was the crashing or the destruction of the D.
you were talking about that earlier too, in regards about thoughts about that, and it was like, how many times do we have to see the Enterprise get destroyed?
This
And
was our
What? No,
first,
so
second,
no, it wasn't our first. It was not our first time.
so you were saying that was a mandate from the studio that the
yes,
D. What was the
destroy
reasoning?
the D. I don't
Was
know
the
why.
reasoning? I guess I think it was that to completely separate it from the TV show. That
I
we're
imagine,
going-
or they
this
wanted
is
to
the
introduce
thing,
Voyager.
but
I don't know.
This is old. This is part of the old guard.
yeah,
And and thank God they got John Eves to do the E, because it looks way better than the D. I've never been a fan of the fat one. So
I loved that one.
like
I love it. That's my ship. I gotta say, all that aside, they did a pretty reasonably good job crashing it. I mean, ILM, the crashing was all practical. It was all miniature.
Yeah, it was all practical.
The ribbon, the actual Nexus ribbon itself was ILM, and I gotta tell them, they did a great job with that. It actually still looks good to this
For
day.
94, keep in mind, CGI is still in its infancy here.
Yeah. But
so,
the ship crash was a hell of a thing. There's some issues with it.
it didn't
issue,
make any sense why it crashed to me. You already separated.
There was a shockwave from the thing.
I know, but that knocked everything out, and it was. I mean, it just doesn't.
It wasn't the full D. It didn't have the star drive anymore. It was just the saucer.
They should have gone out with impulse engines, but I guess when the
and then Deanna's like, the helm is not responding, which is why everyone's like, Deanna crashed it, but she didn't. She was trying.
Yeah, that wasn't her fault. I mean, the shockwave of the warp core exploding is what knocked out everything on the saucer section.
That's what I thought was going on.
Yeah, and I thought it was effective.
I tumbled ass over tea kettle.
Well, yeah, that would have been something. Could you imagine if it did the roll?
It was
then nobody would. The thing is, it's like, I think they had to have it crash that way if they had any hope of people surviving that.
But they showed windows breaking, and this thing has been in space. I don't think windows would break. That's the other thing, you guys. The very, 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 very beginning of this movie, the very opening shot of this movie is them crashing the champagne bottle against the hull of the E. No,
it's the B.
The B.
B is in Bravo.
The B. Yeah, the B. Would that champagne still be liquid in space? Or do I just need to suspend disbelief?
Well, the thing is, the bottle probably would have exploded from the pressure.
The pressure of the alcohol,
From the
I'm watching it tumble, and I'm like,
so let's assume that it was a special bottle of Dom Perignon that didn't have any bubbles in it. It wasn't under pressure.
It clearly showed liquid, and I was like, would that be liquid in space?
Maybe it would evaporate instantly.
Like, maybe it was special. It wasn't actual wine.
It would just freeze instantly.
Maybe it was just a special liquid that stayed liquid in space, so they could do these things.
They clearly went out of their way to show you that it was a Dom Perignon bottle, though.
Yeah, they did. 2020.
So maybe Dom Perignon in the 24th century makes space-worthy champagne.
It's all the little things like that that I'm looking at.
I never thought, it never even occurred to me, but it's a good point. That's I like that opening. I think the CGI on it is now a little dated. It doesn't.
Yeah, that didn't look as good as the Nexus.
But it was a neat way to open the movie. You kind of see this thing kind of floating. Although
it's tumbling.
I didn't know. It was, since we brought it up, and I really wasn't gonna. When it, you see the thing and then it hits the ship. I'm like, but then you see a wide shot of the ship and it's in the space dock.
Yeah.
You don't see that behind the bottle.
Yeah, you just see stars.
Yeah, it's like it was in the middle of interstellar space or something, and then it's like, oh no, it's just right outside of space dock, and it probably got launched from the space dock frame.
Yeah.
So,
anyway, back to the crashing of the ship.
That's niggly crap.
It really is. Back to the crashing of the ship. I'm going to defend Deanna. Everyone's like, "Oh, we gave her the keys and she crashed the ship." No, she didn't. She didn't. The ship crashed of its own accord.
She had it last.
She
tried so hard.
She was at the helm last, so
she was trying. She's like, the helm was not responding.
Well, that kind of cracks me up. Is like there was no other qualified helmsman. They had to put the counselor. I know they had gone in the past that she had command privileges.
Yeah,
and
right.
stuff. They
Everyone
established
evacuated.
that.
Everyone, the entire ship's
But I mean,
complement
all
had
those people, there
evacuated
was
for the
not
saucer
another,
section.
because you notice, like on TOS, every time like somebody would get up out of the helm
Yeah,
or
someone else
nav,
would slide
somebody
into the
else would
seat.
immediately jump in and sit down. There was not even an order to
Oh,
take over. Generally,
That reminds me. Did you see how much Tracy Lee Coco was in this movie?
I didn't. You know,
There
it's
was
funny that you mentioned that because as soon as I'm like, oh hey. Now remember,
Every time you
I
said, like,
wasn't
"Miss
at that.
I do remember her.
Yeah,
At least
I
a
wasn't
couple of
at that
scenes.
Trek Ticonderoga, so I didn't never got to really meet her.
Oh, she's the sweetest.
Well, I
Good.
should have. I was gonna. She was at Vegas this past year, and I was thinking
She
about
has big
introducing. Say, hey,
energy.
I was at the. I usually go to the thing, and it's the one I didn't go to. You were there, but
She did a long one.
but I did notice. I did recognize her right away that she was right up there at the helm. So, and again, the explosion and everything else. You know, when they're getting targeted, it seems kind of weak that two torpedoes even unshielded blew the crap out of them.
Totally agree with you about that. That
You
was
know what
one
I'm saying? I'm like, really? Because like
the Enterprise was
after
taking
all
up
the board, don't you modulate your shield frequencies constantly because of the whole board thing?
I mean, the only thing I could think of is that the Enterprise weapon, and that's the way I kind of got around that, is that the Enterprise weapons were so much more superior, and this was like a Class D freighter or a Class.
It was a really crappy bird. It was an old bird of prey because it dates back all the way to Kirk's time.
Yes, yeah. That's the only thing, and since their shields,
they did reuse the explosion from 6, by the way.
But it was
they did. They reused some ship shots. Yes,
that
they
was the
did.
same explosion from a different angle.
They did. That actually kind of bothers me a little.
Oh,
like, you don't do something in the theaters.
One thing we didn't talk about real quick, with and it was a cut. I came across this, and I did not know about this. There was a deleted scene, and I understand why they cut it, but Geordi was being tortured by Soren.
Yes,
and they used, I guess, he used like a nanoprobe to stop his heart. And that's why when Soren makes that comment, he said, you know, when he comes to talk to the Dora sisters, he said, you know, about, you know, she says, how's Mr. LaForge doing? And he said his heart wasn't in it.
Wasn't in it, yeah.
Because
and that comment does, you're right. You're right.
That's the real
that's true, because then Beverly makes thing that I removed the nanoprobe. We're like,
and that line doesn't make any sense. It's like, now it kind of clicked.
Should not have cut that.
No.
Or should have gone around it other ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the last time
I do like the line though that Soren goes through, and he goes, he's like something. Why didn't they give you something that make you look more normal? And Geordi goes, what's normal? And Soren goes, normal is what everybody else is, and you are not. And it's like, oh, burn, like you know, just pointing out the fact that he's, you know, he has this disability,
right?
But stupid. So this is the last. Yeah.
I thought that was a good
killed
line.
off the Duras sisters. No more of them.
Yeah.
Which is too bad because they were kind of fun. Like
one of them has died anyway. The act.
Yes.
Barbara March, I think.
Yes, I forget which one. I have the autograph of the other one, and I always forget which one I have.
Yeah. Yes, I think she died several years after that. But yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. I think that might have been a closure too. They were annoying.
How can this film be 30 years old though? It's like, what the heck just happened? I mean,
I know. So
wow.
I know, and I saw it. I've seen it. Like I said, I know I saw it in the theater, and I'm pretty sure I saw it opening weekend. Yeah. I might have been the first. I used to go then. That was back in the days when you didn't buy tickets in advance. You had to like go to the theater.
Just go stand in line.
Yeah. And I remember I was like, I know I saw 4. I saw 4 opening day too. I remember that.
4 was fun though. I mean,
I didn't hate. You know, there's a lot of times like I didn't hate this movie. I didn't come out going, man, that stunk. That was horrible.
I didn't hate it, but I was a little underwhelmed.
I didn't like the death of Kirk. I didn't like the way they killed Kirk off. And I didn't, even though I wasn't a fan of the D, I didn't understand why they felt they had. I guess I understood why they were doing it. I was just like, oh, it's kind of weak just to get a new ship.
Yeah, but, I did. You know what? When he died, and his final line is, "Oh my!" I don't know why, but my brain immediately went to George Takei. Because that's his signature line, and we knew that even then. We knew that even in 1994.
Did we really? I don't know.
Yeah, we absolutely did. My brain went right to it. I was like, why did he just use George's line?
Well, he's explained what the line was and what he was supposed to be, like the wonderment of the afterlife or something.
Speaking of lines, it was gonna be Kirk Bones Spock on the bridge, and Dee was not feeling well. Like Dee was getting near the end there, and Leonard just didn't like the script. So they
Leonard
both
was offered-
resigned.
Well, and George was actually, they wanted
That's right, he
George
was
to be the
offered.
helmsman,
He didn't
but
want
George
it.
felt that by that point he said he
No, I
felt
should be
Sulu's, you know, George has a very strong feelings about Sulu as a character, and he felt that he turned down the role to be on the bridge with because he didn't want to be under Kirk's command one more time. He felt he should, by this point, he should be a captain of his own, as we know he's been lobbying to. So
especially after Star Trek 6, I mean, to be at that point, and then he would have been helming the Enterprise. It wouldn't have made sense.
he should have been. It would have been interesting if they made him captain instead of Harriman.
And if you listen to Chekhov and Scotty's lines, you can tell whose was Bones's and whose was Spock's. They barely changed them. But
you're
all right, guys.
Yeah.
It is 8:03. Phil wishes everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Roy, what do you got going on?
Well, we are going to come on in about a half an hour, and
everybody just changed the channel.
Switch the channel. We're on the internet channel. So go to Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner, and we're only going to be. I was originally going to do it like a full episode for tonight. So, folks, this is just going to be a preview episode. We're only going to be on for a few minutes, and this is to prep us because Mike and Mary Beth, Sci-Fi Distilled, is going to be joining Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner for our crossover episode, and we will be doing it on Sunday, and this will be the full episode on Sunday
the 1st.
Yes, December 1st, if you can believe that. And we are going to be celebrating the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, The Cage. The first pilot was filmed today on this date 60 years ago. So again, we're going to be on for 15 minutes tonight, just for a few minutes, and just to let viewers know and just say hi and just kind of just celebrate the anniversary because it is on this date. But then we're going to have a full discussion this coming Sunday after Thanksgiving, because we know a lot of people are going to be cooking their turkeys, traveling, so we don't want to hold you up. So, but thank you for that.
So everybody change the channel. We'll see you on 30 minutes.
So we'll go. So we're going to be over on Roy's channel in half hour, you said? Something like that?
Yeah, 8:30, 26 minutes.
Okay. So until then, all right, we'll see you there. Until next week. I don't know what we're doing next week for us anyway. So as usual.
One step at a time.
We'll come up with something. So, all right, guys. Until then, live long and prosper, and may the force be with you always. Good night.
Hi, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.